Hi, it's Ursula from ursula-smith.com, and today I am playing around with Sizzix luster wax. So what I've done so far is I've just used an old stencil brush. I didn't have enough of the makeup brushes that I've been using to use it with the wax, so I just grabbed this old stencil brush. I still think the makeup brushes are a little bit softer, so I probably would like those better, but this definitely worked. Oops. Sorry. So the stencil brush definitely worked to get through the stencil. And I'm going to come through and spray it with plain Distress spray stain because it seems like the wax might resist, just like the Distress oxides will resist if you go over it with spray stain. It seems like the luster wax will as well. The other thing I wanted to play around with, and so I'll probably do this in another video, is this is a Yupo paper stencil. I had used Distress paint through it, and then same thing came through with this luster wax, and just if this was a cutout that I was going to use in a project, I think that may be a good way to go ahead and color the Yupo paper. But I've used this stencil with a ton of stuff, including collage medium. So I don't know if everything's sticking because of using this, or if the paint, the layers of just paint and luster wax would work directly. So anyway, I will play around with that in a future video. But for right now, I'm just going to peel up my mask. And so I'm left with the coverage of the luster wax. And then I'm going to grab some spray stains. So I will, let's do the prize ribbon for right now. And I may come in, a lot of times I like to come in with a lighter color, and a lot of times I use like a teal or a turquoise, or in this case it's peacock feathers. So I'm going to try something that I haven't tried yet. When I've done this before, I've just kind of let it air dry overnight, which is my usual way of working, just because I kind of do things in 5-minute increments. So I'm going to try and spritz. And then the other thing I did when I was playing around before is I did go in and try and mop up the beads to get it off the wax. But what I'm going to try and do now is I'm going to try and use the heat gun to dry it. And then we'll see, can I go back in after that and wipe off the drops off the luster wax. And I am not plugged in. I do not leave my heat gun plugged in when I'm not using it, just in case of accidents. So I'm going to go through and try and dry this. I actually have a lot of ink. And what I've done before when I've had that much ink is just take a second piece of paper and kind of mop up some of that ink. But I'm trying to avoid that because it definitely will take the dots off the wax, and I really want to see whether after it's dry I can go back in and mop those off. And hopefully I can. Because I was planning on using this card, so we shall see. And then in the meanwhile, the masks and stencils, I have gone in and used alcohol to try and get some of the wax up. I did try to spritz it with alcohol and do a lift. That did work a little bit, so when I'm done with this, I'll go back in and we can try that, and I can show you the effect. It's a subtle effect, but it is kind of cool. So, okay, I'm going to continue drying so you don't have to watch this, and I will be back when that's done. Okay, I'm back. So this is mostly dry. And what was interesting is the drops that were on the luster wax just kind of evaporated. So I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to mop it up. I did nothing. I just dried it and the drops disappeared. So yay, that is super nice. And I may go back in here and kind of spritz it a little more with water, but that's a quick and easy background to start a card with. And so then we're going to come back in here. You know what, I'm going to get rid of some of this ink. So I'm going to spritz this with alcohol. And then take a piece of cardstock. And again, you know, you can use a brayer. I'm going to use a brayer with this just because there's not as much stuff, if you will, to transfer. So I'm going to try and mop up as much as I can. Okay, so it kind of looks like there's nothing there, and you can see a lot of it's still on here. Now in the past, I did go in and spritz again and kind of, you know, go around. I was using a scroll stencil. I think it was this one, and I kind of went around. But in this case, I'm going to leave it like it is, and I'm going to come back in with the spray stains and see if any of that transferred this time. Sorry, I put my turquoise away. I should have left it out. And then in this case, I did come back in with water. And again, up to you if you want to try and mop it up, if you just want to dry it. Combination of both. Try and get some of the ink on this side. So once again, I'm going to go off camera, and when it's dry, I will be back. Okay, I'm back. And so it's not quite completely dry. This was taking forever because it was so wet. So you can just kind of see like a hint of a design. So again, wouldn't use this as a focal point, but it's a good card base to start layering stuff on top of. So again, I always try to do a lift just in case, because I can always come back over it with something else, even paint if necessary. And so that was kind of the lift off of what we just did. This was dried with the heat gun, so works great. So if you're in a hurry, that is definitely a way to go. This was the original test I did. It was a background that was mostly Distress Oxide. I had gone in and stenciled or sprayed. I think I sprayed with plain spray stain, which did go over the Distress Oxide, but it was kind of, you know, spread out and muted and whatever. It was a piece of paper that I might have used, I might not have. And so what I did, I went back in with the luster. I sprayed the background just with water, which kind of started reactivating the ink that was underneath, and then set it aside to dry. I did do one more So this one was the technique that I just did, stenciled with the luster wax, spray stained over it, but this one I just set aside to dry. I did not do the heat gun. And then when I was working on that one, I tried to mop up on both sides the luster wax, and you can just see hints of it. This side, you can kind of see these spots are actually from spray from the other side. So I sprayed on this side, but then when I tried to do it again on this side, and I still had ink on my nonstick surface, and I just kind of rubbed it over. And so, you know, again, kind of a subtle effect on both sides. So, you know, if you've got the time and you feel like playing around with doing the mop up, again, I sprayed the stencil with alcohol wax and then rubbed it on a plain piece of paper. So you can give that a shot, like I said, if you have time. But this way definitely works. Stencil with the luster wax, spray stains over it, and that's a quick take 5 type of background. So thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.